find with Neanderthals is interesting is injury patterns, because almost all adult Neanderthals have at least one or more healed fractures that occurred during their life. And a guy named Eric Trinkhaus did a systematic study of Neanderthal patterns of bone breakage in Neanderthals, and he found lots of breaks, stress fractures in their feet, which you could explain by running barefoot over stony ground, but a lot of upper body damage to them. And he looked for modern occupational categories that matched that pattern of injury, and he eventually found one. And interestingly enough, it's rodeo cowboys, and specifically cowboys that will ride the bucking horses or the bulls, which are, cowboys are basically dealing with big ungulates that are flailing around with their hooves. And this is essentially what you get when you're trying, what they're trying to do. The main prey animals for Neanderthals in Europe are large ungulates. They're the red deer, which is the size of an elk, same thing as an elk. The wild horse, the bison, which can get up to a ton, and the wild cattle. And wild cattle are about twice the size of modern cattle and were notoriously mean. They lasted into the Middle Ages, and they were known as the wild bull of the forest. And those things were just enormous. And think about it. You don't have bows and arrows or any sort of projectile technology. You've got stabbing spears. So you're going to take a spear like this, and this is a good replica of one that was found in Germany. And basically, a sharpened sticky, you're going to start poking. In fact, these were found with rhinoceros bones. You're going to start poking something that has a hide that thick. Well, A, you've got to be extremely powerful to make that work. To shove that tip through the side of a horse or something takes a lot of strength. A, and B, the animal's not going to enjoy the experience, and it's likely to try to gore you, stomp you, kick you, whatever, and that's how you get these injury patterns. Neanderthals did take care of their injury. One of the other skeletons found from the same site that produced that one, Shanidar, guy lost his arm sometime early in his life. He lost his forearm.
You can see this on the other side of the case.
There's a cast of it on the other side of the case. The upper arm just withered away. So basically, one arm was this little stump. The other arm was completely healthy. So, and this guy lived, a full life, meaning lasted till his late 30s.
So how old would Neanderthals live?
Well, it's always a problem aging something after about age 25, when all the suture lines close in your bones and your teeth have erupted. The best guess is that the maximum age for Neanderthals is about the low to mid 40s. Most of them died younger. Where this guy was found, there were a total of 8 skeletons, 2 adults, 3 juveniles, and 3 infants, including possibly one stillborn child. So basically, as a matter of fact, we probably have more kids than adults in terms of preserved Neanderthal skeletons. So life was tough and short. There's also evidence from the teeth that there were interruptions in tooth formation caused by malnutrition in Neanderthals, suggesting they periodically experienced significant periods of starvation when they were young. It was not an easy life. Neanderthals are living in a time period in Europe from roughly 200,000 to 35,000, where roughly 95% of that time, the Earth's climate is colder than today, and in many cases, very significantly colder than today. So they're living in boreal forest conditions. And the closest thing you'd find here is if you went up into about 500 miles north of Montreal, if you sort of did a straight shot up. I worked in Montreal. Boreal forest. What?
Toronto.
Oh, Toronto? Oh, okay. And it is basically they're living in boreal forest environments. So it's low population density, and if you have a bad year and the reindeer migration decides to go someplace else and doesn't come near where you're living, you can be in very serious trouble.
Are they in one spot, or are they nomadic?
That's actually a subject of a lot of debate at the moment. The conventional view, probably right, is that Neanderthals have what's known as a radiating settlement pattern. That is, they will find a place to stay, a rock shelter or a cave, and plunk themselves down there and go out every day, basically radiating out from that until they deplete the resources within about a 10-kilometer radius of that spot, and then they have to shift. They often return to the same place again and again over the years because there are sites, site where this thing came from here, there are sites where you have, you know, layers in a site that are as thick as this thing is tall, where 70% of the total sediment is tools. This stuff is being used over and over again. It's for virtually all flint chips, various kinds.
Is that a real skeleton?
Oh, geez, no. This is a really high quality cast. This cast you will see on the top of the complete reconstructed Neanderthal skeleton over there. Same thing with this femur.
How carefully do you have to be with the old skeletons?
Many of them are extremely soft and crumbly when you encounter them, so you actually have to paint a preservative on them as they're coming out of the ground. Some others are literally hard as rocks. It can vary. The new, really early human discovery that was announced a year and a half ago in Ethiopia, a thing called Ardipithecus, that stuff was so soft coming out of the ground that they were literally down there with needles, picking off individual pieces of matrix, of soil, and then dropping a preservative onto the bone, picking it out. And that, of course, the bones had compressed in the ground and crumbled into hundreds of little pieces. So basically you got this jigsaw puzzle of stuck together dirt with a bone in it. And then in the lab, and it took them a decade to do it, they had to mine out, again with needles, all the spaces between the cracks and then stick the pieces together. And it took them, I say, for the Ardipithecus fossil, it took about 11 years to prepare that single, it was I'd say a complete skeleton. It was a partial skeleton. These are replicas. These things are real. These are real tools over here. These are replica. Those are real bones.
And these are examples of how. Now, what type of rock is this?
That's flint.
This is flint?
Yeah.
That's
As in, like flint and steel.
Yes. Yeah. European. Matter of fact, the last use of that in Europe was as gun flints. What? That's actually what?
What kind of rock is it?
Oh, the type of rock. This is a stuff. It's chemically similar to flint. It's called chert. This actually comes from Indiana.
How did they make these tools by like
percussion, by striking.
striking?
Yeah. This is. I've got a model here. This is a natural flint nodule, and you just take a hammerstone, and you have to find a flat surface so you transfer the force of the blow efficiently. Strike near the edge. From the impact point, a shock wave starts going through the tool, and the shock wave starts out as a little cone. Have you ever seen a piece of glass break with a small object will hit it? It forms a little conical hole. Well, that's how it starts. It's a little cone, and then I won't go into the physics of it. It changes into a bulge and then flattens out. And
So you have to find the right point to.
yeah, you have to strike it. So here, if I wanted to make something like this, I'd strike here, and I'd turn it over and use that flat surface and hit there and take off a chip there, and then alternate around the edge so the rough out will end up looking like this. And
So you get all of that stuff off.
yeah, you get all of the weathered surface is called the cortex. You get rid of the cortex, and then if you want to be real fancy, you can use most of these flakes that come off. I could take this and turn it into a scraping tool, or even into a spear. It's thin enough to turn it into a spear, just by holding it like this and taking a small hammerstone and striking on the edge like that.
So where's the hammerstone that you were saying? This thing?
That one, I just started to use that. You can see the blunting. This is a hammerstone I've used for about 25 years, and it started out as a thing about that long. It was gradually
So now this thing,
down.
how does this hurt your hand when you hit?
If you're careful, it doesn't. You have to be careful. There's certain things that flint knappers should never do. Never hold your hammerstone like this, because when you follow through, you're going to chop your fingers off. You always hold it like this, where you're going to strike, where your hand is never exposed to the edges. Like that.
So you
Are
make
you
one
making
yourself?
them right there? Are you making them? Here?
Well, I'm just putzing around showing how these things work. Where's the...
This?
No, I was looking for this thing. This is just a chip like that, but then work the edge up to about a 50, 60 degree edge angle, and you can use that as a push plane. And it's actually quite effective. And,
trying to see that. So that's a stick, and he's attached.
And and what they do is they. So can I touch this? Is it metal?
of course, yeah.
So what they would take all of the bark off this.
Yeah.
To make it smooth.
Yeah.
Does it hold better when there's no bark, or?
Yeah, it's just easier to use.
That's crazy.
Yeah.